And Peter looked up, he saw the wind and the waves pushing against him, the chaos around him. He started to doubt. And even in the midst of all of this, as Peter is sinking, he cries out for help, reaches up. Jesus grabs his arm and pulls him up out of the water. And Peter's step of faith was not perfect, but it was something. He took that step, and I imagine that his faith grew because of it. Verse 32, when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." And Peter has got to be sitting here in this boat, wet and cold, maybe feeling a little bit of a failure. But his step of faith, as imperfect as it was towards Jesus, that step of faith made a difference in him, and it made a difference in others. In verse 33, this is the first time that the disciples make this declaration, this proclamation of faith, that surely, pointing to Jesus, surely you are the Son of God. This is the very first time that the disciples proclaimed this to Jesus. Some of them had heard God say it at Jesus' baptism, that you are my son, whom I'm well pleased. Some of them had heard Jesus allude to it just a little bit before this, but this is the first time that the disciples had connected all of the dots, had the light bulb moment, and they saw Jesus for who he really is. Truly, you are the Son of God. There was something about seeing Jesus and watching Peter take steps of faith that made everything come together, and they worshiped Jesus. And I imagine that this step of faith that Peter took out of the boat that day, it probably felt like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I can relate to that. Maybe you can too. I think that's one of the reasons why so many of us, we look to Peter and we're like, man, I get that guy, because it's my life. It's how I follow. We take 2 steps forward and we take 1 step back. But I think even in Peter's life, that faith step that he took, again, as imperfect as it was preparing him for what was to come. As far as we know, Peter never walked on water again, but his faith would lead him to preach the very first gospel sermon in the midst of some opposition, and thousands of people came to follow Jesus on the day of Pentecost. Peter's step of faith would take him to this poor beggar on the street who Peter reached out and he said, I don't have money, but what I do have I give to you in the name of Jesus. Stand up and walk. And he healed him. And Peter's steps of faith, it took him to places where he was persecuted because of Jesus. He even died for him. And I wonder how many times Peter thought back to that moment as he was sinking on the boat going, man, I don't want that to happen again. I want to continue to walk towards Jesus. And so as we close out today, and we're talking about trusting him more, my question is, what's 1 step of faith that Jesus is inviting you to take? What is 1 step of faith that Jesus might be inviting you to take today? And maybe it's starting a spiritual conversation with someone, inviting them over for dinner. If it ever stops raining, maybe doing a block party in your neighborhood, and just to be able to get to know your neighbors and form some friendships that the Lord would use. And maybe your step of faith is to serve in a way that you feel unqualified, that you don't know what you have to offer. And so stepping out and choosing to serve at the furniture giveaway event that we do every August. Maybe that's your next step of faith. Maybe it's coming tonight to the bonfire and writing some notes to kids who are in foster care and foster families, just to encourage them. Maybe that's your next step of faith, to say, I'm gonna serve somewhere. Instead of just staying home tonight, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna serve. Maybe your next step is forgiving someone who hurt you. Maybe it's asking someone to forgive you when you've hurt them. Maybe your next step of faith is stepping into generosity and taking this step that feels uncomfortable, starting a new habit, giving to something that the Lord has laid on your heart. Maybe your next step of faith is starting a new discipline in your life or getting rid of an old, tired habit that you just don't want to live with anymore. What is one step of faith that Jesus is inviting you into? And then the follow-up question is, what's keeping you from it? Like, if you feel like Jesus is nudging you in this direction, what's keeping you from it? What's taking your eyes off of him and making you fear, making you doubt? You know, Peter climbed out of the boat, feet on top of the water, heart pounding, eyes fixed on Jesus. But as soon as all of these things, fears and doubts and everything started creeping in, he took his eyes off of Jesus. He began to sink. He lost his confidence and assurance. What is making you lose your confidence and assurance and keeping you from taking this step that Jesus wants you to make? Is it fear? Doubt? Are you saying, man, I've tried that before and it didn't work out, and so now I'm afraid to step out and try again? Faith grows when feet move. I just want to challenge you this week to move your feet, to move your faith, to get out of the boat, to trust, and to take the step that Jesus may be inviting you to take.